Thanks everyone for joining us tonight for tonight's live stream talk. My name is Elizabeth Watts. I am an educator here at the Pajarito Environmental Education Center, or PEEC, and we are sponsoring this talk tonight with the Department of Public Utilities here in Los Alamos. We work together to promote energy and water conservation in Los Alamos County. So we thank you all for joining us. We are recording tonight's talk, and everyone is virtual. So we will be taking questions via the chat. One person is Nicole is, I think, on tap to answer questions, maybe as they come in, or we can answer questions as we get to the end. You also will receive a short survey after this. It will come from PEEC, but we really value any feedback you have about the program. And so, if you're like me, you tend to ignore the email surveys, but if you can just take a chance and fill that out for us, that would be greatly appreciated, especially since this is like several different organizations working together on this program. With that, I am going to turn it over to our speakers tonight. We have Lauren Forbes and Nicole Buss from Cactus Rain, and they're going to be telling us about rainwater harvesting and graywater recycling systems. So with that, I'm going to mute myself, but feel free to put any questions you have into the chat during the program. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Lauren. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Abby and Pete and Los Alamos Water Conservation for inviting us. So we've got a short time together. I'm going to jump right in. My name is Lauren. I am from Cactus Rain. We're a small business here in New Mexico focused on alternative water systems, including rainwater harvesting and graywater recycling systems. So we're going to tell you a little bit today about an introductory level of how to get started with rainwater, what rainwater harvesting and graywater recycling can involve. So starting with why it's important, often attributed as a Native American proverb, the frog does not drink up the pond in which he lives. We are taking water from rivers and water from aquifers, and we have less of it every year. And so one way that we can deal with increasing drought, increasing flooding, and population growth is these adaptable and decentralized water. So that's decentralized. So that's you collecting your own water at home versus having water centrally distributed. And I'm seeing that there's a little hard to hear the speaker. Is there anything I can do to change that? I might have had my hand over the microphone. A little better?
I can hear you on this end. Okay.
Lauren, maybe just speak a little bit louder too.
I will speak a little louder. All right. So I don't have time to go into the whole water cycle today because we want to focus on some things that you can do at home. But if this is something that interests you and you want to learn a little bit more about it after this talk, I would strongly recommend these short videos from Water Stories about how the water cycle is changing and what we can do to reverse some of that changing of the water cycle. So rainwater harvesting, the first thing you think of might be a rain barrel under a gutter. But rainwater harvesting can actually include both active and passive methods of harvesting. So active rainwater harvesting is gutters and downspouts and rain barrels or rain tanks underground that actively take the water and store it. Passive rainwater harvesting is taking that runoff and redirecting it into the landscape instead of letting it run off into streets and stormwater basins. So we want to make sure that we're thinking about both of those types of rainwater harvesting when we talk about rainwater harvesting. There are things you can do to redirect water into your landscape that doesn't require spending any money on barrels or tanks or gutters or other infrastructure. So when we're talking about rainwater harvesting, your first thought might be, doesn't rain that much here. How much water can we actually get? I get this question every day. And so here is just a rule of thumb calculation for you if you want to write it down and do your calculations for your roof after the call. This is a general rule of thumb, but for every 1,000 square feet of roof, times every inch of rain that we get, you can get about 600 gallons of water. So that is water that you can put in your rain barrel, or that's water you can put in your landscape. So if you think about a rain barrel, a 50-gallon rain barrel, or even a 200-gallon rain barrel isn't even going to hold 1 inch of rain. So using these passive strategies to infiltrate rainwater into the landscape, like this picture is showing, where you use swales and basins and berms and curb cuts. Curb cuts are taking water that's running down a street and redirecting it into the landscape instead of letting it flow down the street. And having places where that water can infiltrate the landscape is an important part of rainwater harvesting, because not all of that water is going to go necessarily into a rain barrel unless you have very large cisterns. So that was one of the questions that this group asked is, what kind of rain barrels are there and how big are they? There are lots of different types and styles and sizes and colors and materials of barrels, tanks, IBCs. There are metal tanks, there are wooden tanks, there are plastic tanks, there are bladders or pillows, above ground tanks and below ground tanks. Essentially, they are containers that can be used to hold water. And usually you want to make sure that they are containers that are clean for drinking water, not necessarily containers that used to hold chemicals or something that's going to contaminate your water. But anything that holds water, it can be a rain barrel for you. And that can be as small as 50 gallons and as big as 10,000 gallons, and lots of things in between. Another question that was submitted ahead of time is where to get them. Cactus Rain does carry tanks. There are also some tank distributors in Santa Fe. The tanks we carry include round tanks for above ground, slimline tanks that can go next to your house in a narrow space that's only 25 inches wide, and underground tanks that can be buried to help reduce freezing. Those can come in different sizes and colors. Another question that was submitted ahead of time is how much do tanks cost? I can give you how much Cactus Rain charges for different sizes of tanks. So if you've got a camera phone or want to write down something really quick, there's a little QR code if you wanted to grab it. And we will share this, so if you miss it, don't worry, you can get it later. These are our prices for new tanks that are certified for potable drinking water. So I mentioned underground tanks. We are subject to freezing here. We got snow this morning. Did everyone else get snow this morning? It's not safe until after Mother's Day. So yes, water can freeze when it's cold outside. And here where we're at the high elevation, your tanks and barrels could freeze in the winter. Some things to keep in mind is that the bigger the tank, so the larger the volume of water, the less likely it is to freeze. And burying an underground tank is one way to help prevent freezing. So if you're using rainwater harvesting for your whole house to be off-grid or because your well has gone dry, we strongly recommend underground tanks for those applications because they're less subject to freezing compared to above-ground tanks. If you do have a barrel, and this is a picture from my deck a few winters ago, your gutters and your barrels could absolutely freeze in winter. So one method to deal with that is to drain the tank in winter so it's not full of water in the winter, and take it out from under your downspout and bring it back out in the spring. But if you want to use that water to start watering your veggies that you're starting in the spring, you might want the water in April before we get the next rain. So we do have, there are tanks that are made locally. These are made in New Mexico that are freeze tolerant. So they can stay full of water and the water will freeze, but the tank should be able to handle that. Other things you can do to help with your tank freezing in winter is things like insulating it with straw bales or heat wrap, or enclosing it in a structure like underneath a deck with insulation in an area that stays above freezing. And of course, that underground tank, which is less subject to freezing than the above ground tanks, is the best solution if that's your main water supply for your house. So another concern with rainwater harvesting into tanks and barrels is keeping bugs and critters, mosquitoes out of your water. And that's accomplished with things like screen baskets and gutter leaf eaters. So these things keep detritus like leaves and stuff that's fallen on your roof out of the tank, as well as keeping it from becoming a mosquito breeding ground and keeping critters out of your tank. So we have baskets which are very easy to clean out because you just lift the basket, tap it out, and put the basket back. Leaf eaters that go in line with your gutters can also be very easy to clean in a similar way. If you don't have a basket or you have an abnormal sized hole on the top of whatever you're using for your rain barrel, you can also get just mosquito mesh like it's showing in the bottom left picture and attach that over the top of your barrel. But you don't want to leave your rain barrel open because then you're going to have a mosquito farm. All right, so that's, did we have any quick questions about rainwater as we were going through? Oh, okay. So I'm going to shift quickly then from rainwater over to graywater. Rainwater is how we describe gently used water that comes from your shower or your laundry machine or your tub. So it's not water that's doesn't have waste in it. It's not water from the toilet. And it might have some skin, dirt, soap in it, but it's relatively clean and relatively safe. And so we can, in New Mexico, reuse that water from your laundry and from your shower for irrigation outdoors. There are some rules about how to do that, and there are links on my next slide to the code for that. But I wanted to make sure that we pointed out that it is legal in New Mexico and in fact encouraged, and Abby is nodding her head, encouraged, because by reusing that same water that you've already used once a second time, you can use less water overall. So instead of using clean new drinking water for your irrigation, you can reuse the gently used water a second time and save a lot of water that way. In some households, more than half of the water usage is outdoors for irrigation, and that's our clean treated drinking water. So this is one way that we can quickly and easily reduce that water without making any significant changes in our way of living and our beautiful landscape. So Beverly has asked, what about kitchen water or washing dishes? So right now in the Connecticut code, the kitchen and sink and dishwasher are not considered gray water, and that's because they have more stuff in them than your laundry water and shower water. That said, I have installed 2 systems that are using the kitchen, and we did that under an experimental permit that we received through the state environmental department. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, that is something that we can help you walk through the process for. But if you are only using your laundry machine, bathtub, shower, and bathroom sink, there's actually not even a permit for residential gray water usage under 250 gallons per day. So laundry to landscape is one easy way to take gray water from your house out to irrigate the plants and shrubs in your landscape. Many houses here are built on a concrete slab, so we might not be able to get to the plumbing from your shower or your bathroom, but we can also get to the drain pipe from the laundry machine. And the clothes washing machine is often on an outside wall, and so that makes it possible to take the water from your washing machine outside to water the trees and shrubs in your landscape. So one of the things that Cactus Rain does is actually install these systems. And this is one that we were doing just the other week for a customer, taking water out to irrigate in the landscape. In this same landscape, we also installed some swales and basins, which are terraces in the landscape to help reduce erosion and increase the amount of rainwater that is infiltrating the landscape. So a few more pictures here of a laundry to landscape where we took water from a washing machine out to irrigate a courtyard, and also installed a rain barrel that can be used with a smart water meter when she's not at home doing laundry for the week if she's out traveling. We love mulch. We have t-shirts that say more mulch. So whenever we're doing these landscapes, installing swales and basins, installing plants, irrigating plants, whether it's with rainwater or with graywater, we bring tons and tons and tons of mulch. And people ask, where is all that mulch going to go? Mulch has multiple benefits for your landscape. It reduces evaporation, so the water that you are putting onto the landscape is more likely to stay there, conserves moisture for the plants. It also reduces the ground temperature for the plants, so they're less likely to overheat. So mulch compared to rock could be 10 to 20 degrees cooler with organic mulch, like tree bark mulch, compared to rock around plants. So that helps us use and need less water and helps the ground and soil protect the plant roots and store more water when you do irrigate. A typical laundry machine could be anywhere between 15 and 40 gallons per load. It depends a little bit on your washing machine. You can look it up on the Energy Star website to see how much water your washing machine uses. A typical new front loading machine might use 12 to 15 gallons per load. A 25-gallon high efficiency top loader might use 25. If you have an older style top loader with an agitator, that could be as much as 40 gallons of water per load in that washing machine. Just for a point of reference, the average American household uses about 100 gallons of water per day. A water conservative household could use maybe 25 or 35 gallons of water per day. So one load of laundry doing 40 gallons is significant. So if you do have one of those older style top loader washing machines, definitely consider how you could use that water more than once and use it to irrigate your landscape. When we install these laundry to landscape systems, we use a three-way valve or a diverter valve so that you can redirect water back and forth between the landscape. And if you're doing a load that has something in it that shouldn't go out to the plants, you can redirect that one to your sewer or your septic. This is something that you can DIY on the install. And so if you're interested in laundry to landscape, it is a DIY-able type of task. And if you're not a DIY type of person, then Cactus Rain is out there doing the installs if you're interested. When you do take your laundry water out to the landscape, just be aware that you want to use plant-friendly biodegradable soaps. Salt kills plants, and a lot of powdered detergent has salt in it. So these are things to avoid when you're using your laundry water to irrigate the landscape. Some examples of good detergents that we have found that can be used safely for irrigating the landscape. My personal favorite is Dirty Labs. I've tried a lot of them. Dirty Labs is a super concentrated liquid detergent that is plant-based and biodegradable and actually cleans clothes and smells yummy, and comes in a super concentrated recyclable aluminum bottle, so there is no single-use plastic. So others on here are available locally, and I think Dirty Labs is available at Whole Foods or online. Just avoid the powdered detergents again, because those are mostly salt. Okay. So there are some plants that particularly do like gray water, especially fruit trees. There's a few that we want to avoid when using gray water. So according to code, we shouldn't be growing root vegetables in our gray water. Turf grass does not do well with gray water, and that's because it's a concentrated volume of gray water. It doesn't spread out, and you can't spray it in a sprinkler. So you can't really irrigate lawn or turf grass with gray water. Raised beds and planters don't do well because we usually use gravity to distribute the water, and so it wouldn't go up into a raised bed very easily. Laundry water tends to be a bit alkaline, so acid-loving plants aren't the best. And then all of our native drought-tolerant trees and cactuses, it's actually too much water for them. So recycling gray water gives you an opportunity to have some plants in your pollinator garden that otherwise you wouldn't necessarily have. So some flowering shrubs and fruit trees that might be too water thirsty for a low water landscape do very well with gray water, because whether it rains or not, you're going to do laundry, and they get a steady supply of water. When you're using a direct to landscape, like I was showing with the hose from the laundry machine straight out to the landscape, that wouldn't work with a drip irrigation system because it would immediately clog. Your laundry water does have some stuff in it, and that would clog a conventional drip irrigation system. I'm going to back up just quickly to show the outlets that we use when you are installing that. Oh, I froze. There we go. So it's a large diameter with a large pipe, and you can see how much water is pouring right out of it. And this is a picture of the same thing. We use an air gap and a valve box to protect it when it goes out to the landscape. And that's the valve boxes in that context. So you wouldn't use it with a conventional drip irrigation system. But if you do have a conventional drip irrigation system that you want to use gray water for, there are some other options. And that is that you could treat the gray water before using it for irrigation. The leapfrog estuary is a planter that cleans the gray water and treats it, and then pressurizes that water so that it could be used in a conventional drip irrigation system. Other ways of reusing your gray water are things like the rain stick shower. And that recirculates the water in your shower, uses about 80% less water, and you have essentially an unlimited hot shower. And it also saves energy because you're not having to heat more new hot water when you're taking your shower. Excuse Oscar. Another creative way to save water is to ditch the water softener. So we all have very hard water, whether it's centrally distributed or coming up from a well. The HydroFlow water conditioner is a product that we offer that treats limescale and resolves limescale, but without salt. So again, we said salt kills plants, and salt-based water softeners are very bad for the environment. They also dump water, which wastes thousands of gallons a year. So reducing the usage of a water softener or an RO by using a water conditioner or filters is another great way to save clean drinking water. I see another question here about, is Epsom salt okay? In gray water systems, small amounts of Epsom salt are okay. That's actually a magnesium-based salt, not a sodium-based. And so in small quantities, it's okay. If you're dumping massive amounts of too much of anything is not good for plants, but in small amounts, it's okay. Right, so I flew right through that because I know we have a ton of questions from the group, and I wanted to have plenty of time for that. So Elizabeth, are we able to open it up for questions or put them in the chat?
I think if we can put them in the chat, I think that will be easiest.
Right. All right, so Rachel asks, are there any regulations about how much rainwater you're allowed to collect? There is no limit to the amount of rainwater you can collect, Rachel. The only limit is the definition of rainwater here is water collected off of a roof surface. So water, once it hits the ground, is called stormwater, and at that point would not be considered rainwater for harvesting. So any water off of a roof surface, so if you've got your house and your garage and your casita and a large storage shed, you can get water off of all of those, and there's no maximum amount of rainwater you're allowed to collect. Diane asks, can you talk more about hydroflow? Does it really work for tough water systems? So Dan, I've installed it in my home, and a few people in Santa Fe, Albuquerque, the East Mountains have all installed it. And I will tell you anecdotally from my experience, it absolutely does work for tough water systems. Not only did it stop the limescale buildup, it actually removed the limescale that was already in my pipes and on my glass shower door and in my dishwasher. And that was the first thing I noticed was my dishwasher, because one day my silverware was shiny and I hadn't realized it wasn't shiny until suddenly one day it was shiny again. And the whole stainless steel inside of the dishwasher, which used to be kind of milky, cloudy white, is now shiny stainless steel. And that was one of the first things I noticed. Other people have noticed their glass shower doors are very easy to clean. They used to scrub and scrub and scrub, and the spots never came off, and now they can just wipe them off. So it not only does that preventing limescale, it cleans out your pipes. So for the first couple months after you install it, you'll actually have that limescale coming out of your hot water heater, out of your pipes, out of your dishwasher. And after that, you've got a clean system, and it can pay for itself in saving the life of the water heater. So yes, I love it. If it sounds too good to be true, I'm happy to send lots of information about it, but we are on a mission to reduce the use of water softeners because they're so water wasteful, and we just don't have enough water to be wasteful. Do we deliver large tanks to Los Alamos County? So we did talk about maybe doing, if a lot of orders come in and we can put a few on the same trailer and bring them up together, maybe doing some deliveries up there to Los Alamos County. So we are located in the Sandia Mountains between Albuquerque and Santa Fe. So that is a possibility for us. Can I talk? What is the expense for the hydroflow? The hydroflow unit is around $650, including tax and a surge protector. So less than the cost of a water softener, and then there's no maintenance, no salt for the lifetime of it, nothing else to do. My house was built with Graywater piping. All right, so John is asking about Graywater, and the Graywater comes out below ground and we need to be pumped up to be used. Do we have anything that could do that? So the reason the Graywater is coming out below the house is, of course, the house's drain pipes are using gravity. And so the pipes are going to slope down under the house and away from the house. So when we do need to lift the water back up, we can use something like a sump basin and an effluent pump to bring that back up above ground. What we don't want to do is store it. So you never want to store Graywater in a tank. It can turn septic. It's also in the state code and state regulations not to store Graywater for more than 24 hours. If you have somewhere around your house that's downhill from the water source, then using gravity is our best friend, because then it doesn't require any more electricity or mechanical inputs or machinery. You can go out to the landscape underground in the mulch basins, and then that water never surfaces and you never have to touch it. John doesn't have anything downhill, but if anyone else is on the side of a hill or a mountain, gravity is your friend. For John, then maybe a sump basin and an effluent pump up to your mulch basins is the solution. Right. So Beth's house, like many of our houses, is built on a concrete slab. but she's ready to do a renovation and might be interested in harvesting the shower water. So any suggestions? So when you're doing a renovation is a really great opportunity to try to grab some of that gray water coming from your bathroom, your bathtub or your shower or even your bathroom sink. So Beth, when we send out notes, I can include a PDF for Graywater ready construction that can give Beth and others more information about how to do the plumbing in her new bathroom so that she can harvest her gray water from the shower. All right. Liz earlier asked if these systems are approved or do they need a special permit? And Abby also answered in the chat that there's no permit or variance currently required for these systems. There is a code. It's a state Graywater code. It's by the New Mexico State Environmental Department. So as long as you meet the requirements in this code, it doesn't require a permit. And there is a link to that code right here. And so that'll be in the distributed notes. So most residential systems are within the threshold of 250 gallons per day that doesn't require a permit from the State Environmental Department. We talk about more about mosquitoes. Is putting mosquito netting at the top of screen enough? Can you add those mosquito killing things to the tank itself? I'll go back to that slide. So yes, if all of your openings to perforations in your tank are covered with a 16 or smaller mesh mosquito netting, stainless steel or plastic, then yes, that is enough to keep mosquitoes out of your tank. If you're still worried about mosquitoes, you can absolutely add a mosquito dunk to that tank. Just make sure, I wouldn't add mosquito dunks to water that you're going to use for drinking water. But if you're using it for irrigation, yes, you can add those mosquito dunk things into your rain barrel as extra protection. I would cover all of the holes with a screen mesh that's fine enough to keep mosquitoes out. All right. So Los Alamos, I guess your water is high in silica and low in calcium, while the hydroflow purifier work on silicates. So the way that the hydroflow works is to prevent limescale. There is some research that suggests that it also helps with silica buildup. And I have a picture of a pipe that's absolutely full of silica buildup. And after the hydroflow went in, the silica buildup was similarly removed to the calcium buildup. That was one research paper. So they don't market it towards silica, but yes, the research has shown that it can be effective for silica scale in addition to lime scale. All right. The hydroflow is a conditioner, so it doesn't remove those materials from the water. So if you test the water, it's still going to be hard water or high in silica, but it changes the way that those crystals are formed in the water so that it doesn't create that scale on the pipes that can't come off, or those water spots that can't come off. Sue was asking, what about water from washing dishes or dishwasher? So I think Sue is asking about using that for the outdoor irrigation. So right now under code, water from the kitchen sink and dishwasher is not approved as gray water without the permit. But we have put in a couple of systems where we did get a permit to use the kitchen water under an experimental status. So if that's something you're really interested in, we can help walk you through that permit process to use the kitchen sink as well as the bathroom. But the kitchen sink would require a permit, whereas the shower and laundry does not typically require a permit as long as you meet the basic requirements of the code. And I saw a friend join a few minutes ago. I saw Judith Phillips in the audience. So if you guys don't know, Judith Phillips is a bit of a local celebrity, author of these plant books and Gardening in the Southwest. So if you're looking for some great books about what plants to put in your natural garden, not necessarily your Graywater garden, but your natural rain garden, check out some Judith Foth books. Hi, Judith. All right. So Diane says that if about an acequia, if they might have concerns about rain barrels and graywater systems. So in the Graywater Code, there are limits to using graywater near an active waterway. So you wouldn't be discharging your graywater into the landscape within X number of feet of that active acequia. Don't think there would be a problem with a rain barrel near an acequia, but you wouldn't have your graywater discharging near an acequia or an arroyo or any other active water system, groundwater system. So Marcus asks if we can use that shower graywater all year, even in freezing conditions. And he's going to ask another question, so I'll answer one at a time here. So in winter, the system is a little bit more subject to freezing. So depending on how deeply buried your graywater pipes are, we typically recommend not to have the irrigation running when the outside temperatures are below freezing. But it is possible that winter watering can happen in the warmest part of the day. Also, your plants need a lot less water in the winter than they do in the summer. So you might still do an occasional load of laundry going out to the landscape, but maybe not every load of laundry. And when it's below freezing, you definitely wouldn't have that load of laundry going out to the landscape. That's when you would use your valve to redirect that load of water during the winter time over to your sewer or your septic instead of out to your landscape. And you would have easy control of that if you have a diverter valve in your laundry room. Marcus also asks, does every graywater source need a three-way valve to provide drainage to the sewer in winter? So they could, your graywater sources, if it's your bathtub and your shower and your bathroom sink and your laundry, those could be combined potentially onto one pipe that would have one three-way. But if they're all in different parts or different locations, yes, every graywater source would, by code, need to be capable of redirecting to sewer or septic, whether they're combined on one three-way or you have separate three-ways for each, just would depend on the layout and design of your house. Right. Abby has asked for any advice for storing rainwater when it's not raining. So Abby's barrels always fill up in the rainy season, and it's a long time before she has to resort to them. So maybe Abby needs more plants. So I really like I have several freeze tolerant barrels that are collecting because I don't use a whole lot of water through the winter, but I do know that come April, when I'm going to start needing to water maybe every other week or once a week, it's not going to rain right when I need it to. So at least I have some water saved from the winter and from the snow melt that I can start using in April. So the reason we store water in the tanks is to have water in between when it's raining. And of course, we don't get a lot of rain, and when we do, we get it all at once, and then we want to use it throughout the year. So on a smaller scale for your irrigation, that might be a freeze tolerant above ground barrel that you keep one that has water in it and you winterize the rest of them. If you're using your rainwater as your whole house supply, that's your drinking water for your house, then I recommend we're going to have much larger tanks. Instead of talking about hundreds of gallons, we're going to be talking about thousands of gallons. And you could have your tank underground or in a protected area, like enclosed in a shed or enclosed under a deck with some insulation and a place where it's kept above freezing. Not only so the tank doesn't freeze, but also so the valves and the water line to the house don't freeze. So that would be how I would store water. It would depend on how much you need and when you need it is going to determine how you store it through the rainy season to keep for when it's not raining. All right. What did I leave out? Lots of stuff. There's so much more to know and do, but hopefully this whet your appetite to start thinking about how you use water, where the water comes from, and how you could maybe use less or use it more than once. All right. Beverly says that she's always been in the habit of pouring out her hand wash dishwater and water used to clean her veggies into her garden. Is that a problem? No, Beverly, use the water. Love it. Absolutely. I still catch the 30 seconds of shower water while shower's warming up in a watering can. And that's what I use for my houseplants, which means that I use the water that otherwise might have gone down the drain. And also it keeps me on a schedule of watering the houseplants. More info on the rain stick. So I briefly mentioned some other ways of reusing water or recycling water. So recirculating shower systems would need to be installed either in a new construction or a remodel. And they take the water in your shower, kind of check it for cleanliness. And if you're just, when you're soaping your hair or washing yourself, if the water's particularly full of particles, it lets that water pass down the drain. But when you're just standing in the shower, contemplating life, as I do for the last 8 minutes of my shower, then it recirculates that hot water in the shower. It does have some filtration, so it's cleaning the water and sending it back through and bringing in just a little bit of makeup hot water from your hot water supply to keep that volume going. And it's even adding pressure. So your rain stick shower would have more pressure than your conventional shower. So you could have an increased flow and increased pressure. So if you like a big, powerful shower, this might be a great solution because you can have that increased flow and increased pressure without wasting water in the meantime. Uses about 80% less water and energy than a conventional shower. So if you are considering that remodel in the future, that's something you might think about starting to, or think about working with your plumber to get that installed. All right. So Diane has asked, are there any New Mexico companies that install gutters and rain barrels regularly? We've had to DIY the gutter rain barrel combo. It'd be great if these two items went hand in hand a bit more easily. As far as I know, I'm the only one. And that's why we started Cactus Rain, because we were on a mission to help residents in New Mexico to be able to save the water that falls on our roofs, use less water, and use the water more than once. So we looked around and we didn't find very many companies. There were a couple in Santa Fe, like the Raincatcher, and San Isidro Permaculture, who are doing a lot of great things with rainwater, but more focused on the landscape. There weren't very many people working on the whole house and the whole water picture. So that's why we started Cactus Rain. If you guys do know of someone out there who's working on it, we'd love to collaborate with them. We also have certified electricians, certified plumbers, and gutter installers that we partner with so that we can take care of the end-to-end process when it's called for, or we can also sell you parts and components if you're more of a DIYer, and just help you get started. We absolutely love that. We can't install every rain barrel in the state, so all right. Beverly has asked, can the rain stick work in a bathtub shower or only in a freestanding shower? So Beverly, it is designed for a freestanding shower, and that's because it has its own basin that recollects the water at the bottom. So I don't think that can be retrofit into a tub shower. And if anyone was wondering about an outside shower that waters the landscape, hey, you've got a 2-in-1. That is direct to landscape, as direct as landscape as it can get. All right. John has asked, any tricks to using a rain chain with a rain barrel? I have a couple of rain chains and I love them. I think they're lovely. There's a little bit more splashing from them compared to a downspout from a gutter, but the beauty factor was worth the extra little bit of splashing for me. So my biggest tip for a rain chain is to secure the bottom to your barrel screen. So in big winds like we get here, that rain chain can get flipped around and knocked around. So if you use a zip tie to secure the bottom of the rain chain onto the mesh screen in your basket, your barrel basket, then that rain chain will stay in place and you shouldn't have any problems. Welcome, John. All right, so Elizabeth, I know you said we're going to about 45 after, and we're at 50 after right now. I'll keep an eye on the chat if there were any more questions. But thank you so much for this opportunity. I love talking about water. It's so important for all of us. If there are ways that we can use less water, capture what we can, use it more than once, then we can all continue to live in this beautiful, enchanting place that we call home in a sustainable way.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. We really appreciate Lauren and Cactus Rain coming to give us some ideas. I know I got a bunch of ideas now. So hopefully we can all work on improving our water conservation here. Again, keep an eye out for that survey we're going to send you. And did you have anything to add, Abby, or anything?
Yeah, one thing. We are in the process of creating a Rainwater Graywater dedicated page on our utilities. So if there's any information anybody would like to see, we'll definitely be putting information on permits, at what point you would need one, all those resources Lauren mentioned, as well as this recording and those slide presentations will be on that page eventually. So just stay tuned for that.
All right, great. Well, thanks again for joining us tonight. And thanks, Lauren, for all your information.
Thank you all. And thanks for your interest in saving water.